Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, member of the Judiciary and Armed Services Committee, so glad to have you in focus today. First of all, what's your reaction when you hear Mayorkas denying the words that, and we have more tape, but it's only an hour show.
Yeah, Harris, those are the words of a delusional ideologue. Of course our border is wide open. Since Joe Biden took office, more than 5 million illegal aliens have entered our country. That's like adding the entire population of the state of Colorado to our country. And if the administration doesn't get its act together and take steps to close our border, especially if they go forward with rescinding the public health emergency exclusionary order at the border known as Title 42, we could add another 5 million in the next year alone. So this is a urgent crisis at our border, but Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden just don't seem to be up to the task. They don't even seem to be willing to admit that it is a crisis.
Have you seen this 6-point list that the White House has put out to try to solve the trouble? I don't know if you've seen it.
I have.
I want to ask you about a couple things on here. And look, I'm not saying that none of this would work. I'm saying that it's probably not going to work by December 21st. Sending more resources to the border. What does that mean? I mean, what are they just going to paste the place with cash?
Yeah, again, Harris, this is the Biden administration delusional ideology. If they send more resources or more, which means cash, or more people to the border, it's not to close our border. It's not to tell these migrants to go home and to apply for entry into our country through our embassies as our laws require. It's simply to process them through the border more quickly. They are not telling people to go home. They're not telling people not to come in the first place. They are simply trying to get them across the border and away from the cameras on our border and into our country as quickly as possible, without regard for what it means for jobs and wages for working Americans or safety on our streets when so many of these people are coming through trafficked by drug cartels. They're not trying to close our border. They're simply trying to speed up people crossing our border.
Wow. Well, you know who tried to tell them in the early days of the administration? The so-called border czar, Kamala Harris, the vice president. They shut her down pretty quickly. She said, don't come, and then she had to say, oh, no, please come. I'm paraphrasing on the second, obviously. Last one on this, on that point of 6, if we can put it back up. Increasing processing efficiency. This is one that really is more than annoying. This is offensive. The men and women in this country who've been working down there and fanning out and trying to work away from the border as much as they can with processing centers and all that. I've seen it at work. They're doing the very best they can. But, Senator, they're outnumbered. They're overrun.
Well, they're vastly outnumbered when you think that when you count for more than 5 million illegal aliens crossing our border just since Joe Biden took office. Again, processing efficiency is a politically correct euphemism for letting more people in our country. What they should be doing is turning people back from our border who don't have a right to cross into our country under our laws. Even more to the point, they should be saying, don't leave your homes in the first place because you won't get here. And if you do get here and get in, we will find you and we'll send you home then. That's the way to address this problem at its root, to make clear to migrants from across the world that they cannot come to our country with complete disregard for our laws.
Let's get to the military. The Senate has approved nearly $860 billion in defense spending, and now it goes on to President Biden to sign it. Republicans got your big ask that the Pentagon's COVID vaccine mandate is out. Troops will no longer have to get the shot in order to serve the country. Of course, it doesn't right the ship for the ones that were already pushed out. The White House, Pentagon both saying they didn't get what they wanted, but again, the president is expected to sign it. Many believe that the mandate played a huge role in shortfalls in the military recruiting. Senator, talk to me about that and the reality of that.
Yeah, Harris, isn't it ironic? We just talked about 5 million illegal aliens crossing into our country since Joe Biden took office. We have no idea what their vaccination status is. And Joe Biden's willing to say the public health emergency is over at our border for illegal aliens, yet they are still objecting to the repeal of this needless vaccine mandate. Now, look, I served in the military. Anybody who served knows the military has the power, and in many cases needs the power, to require its troops to take vaccinations. I took, for instance, the smallpox vaccination before I went downrange. But there are some differences between that traditional general power and this specific mandate. One, the coronavirus vaccine is operating under emergency use authorization. It's still not fully approved. It doesn't have certainly 200 years of trials and efficacy like the smallpox vaccination does. Second, We are currently, as you say, in the middle of a recruiting and retention crisis.
Yes.
The military shouldn't be doing anything to make it harder to get young men and women into the military, or things that are going to make them more likely to leave when their contracts are up. And third, it's just not useful. I mean, the vaccine clearly doesn't do a very good job of restricting transmission of the virus. And for some people, older people or medically infirm people, it does tend to reduce the severity of the cases. But that's simply not the case when you're talking about the healthiest cohort of Americans, young men and women in their teens and their 20s who are physically and medically fit for military service. So I've urged the Biden administration for the last year to eliminate this mandate, which is counterproductive. I regret that they didn't do it, but I'm pleased that Congress stepped forward and eliminated it where the Biden administration wouldn't.
Boy, I tell you, the way that you talk about the readiness and what we need in terms of men and women serving, and it took them a year. I just think about all the people that we are missing in the military now because this sat and the White House didn't do anything. Senator Cotton, always great to have you in focus. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Harris. Merry Christmas to you and all your viewers.